Gaslighting is a software exploit for the human brain. Most people think they know what it is. Lying, denial, manipulation. The mechanism is far more specific. It's a targeted attack on the wetware of memory itself. And brilliant, stable people are just as vulnerable as anyone else. Both the attacker and the victim are locked in a psychological dance, one that has devastating consequences. Where do you stand when your own mind becomes the scene of the crime? By the end of this, you might see the walls of your own reality differently. Let's begin with a rule of the brain most people never learn. Your memory is rewritable. Every time you recall an event, the memory trace becomes temporarily unstable. It's a feature of our biology, designed for learning and updating our understanding of the world. Neuroscientists call this process memory reconsolidation. When you recall a memory, it's like pulling a file from a cabinet. For a brief window, that file is open on your desk. You can add notes, spill coffee on it, or tear out a page before you put it back. When it goes back into the cabinet, the modified version becomes the new original. The brain does this to integrate new information. You learn that a dog that once bit you is now friendly. You recall the fear, update it with new evidence of safety, and store a revised memory. This is how we adapt. A gaslighter, consciously or not, weaponizes this process. The attack begins with trust. The exploit works most effectively when it comes from someone whose authority you accept. A partner, a parent, a boss, a mentor. Their words carry weight. The attack starts small. You say, "You forgot to take out the trash this morning." They reply with calm certainty, "No, I told you yesterday I wouldn't have time." You said you'd do it. You search your memory. You feel certain that conversation never happened. But they seem so sure. They look at you with mild confusion, perhaps a hint of disappointment in your forgetfulness. At that moment, you have pulled the file for yesterday's conversation out of your mental cabinet. It's now open on the desk, unstable, malleable. Their statement is the new information. You said you'd do it. Because they are a trusted source, your brain gives their input a high degree of credibility. You now hold two conflicting pieces of data, your original memory of the conversation and their confident counter-narrative. This creates a state of intense mental discomfort known as cognitive dissonance. The brain craves coherence. It will fight to resolve this conflict. You have two paths. Path one is to decide that this person you trust is lying to you, deliberately about something trivial. Path two is to decide that your own memory, a famously imperfect faculty, might have a gap. Which is more likely? Which is less threatening to your worldview? For most people in most relationships, doubting a minor detail of your own memory is far easier than confronting the possibility that your partner is a manipulator. So you choose path two. You think, maybe I did forget. You refile the memory, now with their edit included. The trash was your responsibility. The dissonant feeling vanishes. You feel relief. You have just successfully completed one repetition of an exercise that teaches you to doubt your own mind. That sounds manageable. But this is where the cycle accelerates. The gaslighter has now established a precedent. They've tested the system and found an entry point. The next attack will be slightly larger. "Why were you so angry last night at the party?" You respond, "I wasn't angry. I was just a little tired." They shake their head, a look of concern on their face. "You were definitely angry. You were being short with everyone. Sarah even asked me if you were okay." Now the stakes are higher. They've introduced a third party, an external validator, real or imagined. The memory file of last night's party is now open on your desk. Their version paints you as emotionally unstable. Your version feels correct, but now it's being challenged by a consensus. The cognitive dissonance is stronger this time. The mental pain is greater. To accept your version means you have to believe your partner is lying and that they are now inventing stories about your friends. To accept their version, you just have to believe you have poor emotional self-awareness. Again, for many people, the path of least resistance is internal. Maybe I came across as angry. Maybe I'm bad at reading my own moods. You refile the memory. Updated, you are the problem. This process, repeated hundreds of times, acts like a form of reverse therapy. Therapy helps you trust your perceptions. Gaslighting trains you to systematically distrust them. Your brain, in its effort to maintain a coherent reality and preserve a critical relationship, learns a simple rule. My perception is the unreliable variable. Their perception is the constant. Over time, you stop trusting your own memories. your own emotional readings, even your own sensory inputs. You start to outsource your reality to them. You begin to ask, was I being too sensitive? Or, that didn't really happen, did it? You are now actively inviting them to write your history. You've handed them the administrator password to your own operating system. This is the endpoint of the neurological hijack, a state of learned helplessness where your own mind feels like an untrustworthy narrator and the gaslighter feels like the sole source of truth. And yet, this model presents the gaslighter as a calculating, methodical villain, a psychological hacker running a script. The truth is often more complicated, and perhaps more disturbing. Imagine a person who cannot tolerate shame, someone whose sense of self is so fragile that admitting any fault, however small, feels like a threat to their very existence. When you confront them with a mistake, "You hurt my feelings when you said that." Their internal system goes into emergency mode. Their brain's primary directive is to neutralize this threat to their self-concept as a good person. So, it generates an alternative narrative on the fly. "I didn't say that. You misunderstood me." Or, "I only said that because you were being unreasonable." Or the classic, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." They deliver this line with absolute conviction. They believe it. In that moment, their brain has rewritten its own memory to preserve their ego. They aren't consciously lying to you, they are lying to themselves first, and you are just the collateral damage of their internal reality defense system. They are gaslighting you to keep from gaslighting themselves. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. The victim, trying to resolve cognitive dissonance, bends their reality to match the gaslighters. The gaslighter, trying to avoid shame, bends their reality to absolve themselves of fault. Two people are now co-creating a shared fiction. One is doing it to survive the relationship, the other is doing it to survive their own self-loathing. The victim experiences it as a malicious attack. The abuser may experience it as simple self-defense. They may genuinely see the victim's insistence on the objective truth as an act of aggression. To them, your accurate memory is an attack, your feelings are an accusation. This perspective feels almost sympathetic to the abuser. And critics will argue that this is a dangerous road to go down. They would say that the why is irrelevant. An arsonist who loves fire and a person who accidentally knocks over a lantern both burn the house down. The house is still gone. The impact on the victim is identical. The neurological damage, the erosion of self, the installation of chronic doubt, it all happens whether the gaslighter is a calculating sadist or a deeply insecure person in a shame panic. Focusing on the abuser's potential trauma or unconscious motives can become a trap for the victim. It's another form of reality bending, where the victim starts trying to understand the abuser's pain instead of protecting themselves from the damage being inflicted. It can become the final excuse to stay, to keep trying, to fix someone who is actively dismantling your mind. The mechanism of the exploit is clinical. It works the same way regardless of the operator's intent. To the person whose reality is crumbling, the reason it's crumbling provides very little comfort. This is the fundamental tension. On one side, viewing gaslighting as a deliberate, malicious strategy gives the victim clarity. It names the enemy, it validates their experience as an attack, and gives them a clear directive: escape. On the other side, viewing it as a learned, often unconscious, defense mechanism might offer a more complex picture of human psychology. It suggests that some of these dynamics, in their milder forms, might be salvageable through therapy and building self-awareness on the part of the gaslighter. It introduces the possibility of change. But it also risks blurring the lines, excusing abuse, and asking the victim to carry the burden of their abuser's psychological work. It demands they hold compassion for the person who is systematically teaching them that their own mind cannot be trusted. This leads to the most difficult part of the equation. We've established that the brain's memory reconsolidation process is the vulnerability. It's the unlocked door. The cognitive drive for consistency is the pressure that pushes you through it. And the gaslighter, whether a strategist or a desperate ego defender, is the one who benefits. But the process is invisible from the outside. There are no bruises. There are no broken bones. There is only the slow, quiet unraveling of a person's world from the inside out. The victim starts to look unstable. They seem confused. They appear emotional. They begin to exhibit the very qualities the gaslighter has been accusing them of all along. They have been perfectly framed for a crime they didn't commit. using their own mind as the weapon against them. The gaslighter now looks like the stable one, the patient one, the long-suffering partner dealing with a difficult person. The illusion is complete. So you're left with this, a neurological mechanism that is value-neutral, a simple function of how memory works, and a psychological dynamic that is anything but. The damage is real, measurable in shattered confidence and years of recovery. The intent, however, can range from calculated cruelty to the desperate flailing of a drowning ego. The hardware vulnerability is present in all of us. The exploit can be run by a malicious hacker or by a corrupted program that believes it's just trying to survive. Where do you draw the line? At what point does a person's desperate attempt to protect their own fragile reality become an act of violence against yours? And who is responsible for protecting your mind when the attack is coming from the person you were taught to trust the most?